Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Hope you're all well. I've got a couple of little stories to tell you. One about an experience when I was in Russia and driving around Russia, and also a bit of a chat about my thoughts on Australia banning social media for 16-year-olds and younger, or thereabouts. Or is it under 16-year-olds? Yeah, I'm going to talk about that, but I'm on the Triumph 400 Scrambler, and if you're thinking about getting one of these, then you should get one. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely wonderful. So, I'm testing out a new chin mount for the camera on the helmet. Found a place that could 3D print it, and it cost just over £12. And it's fitted, and it's been fitted to the helmet, stuck on with 3M tape, and I've left it for 24 hours with a strap around the helmet to make sure it was really tight onto the helmet over that 24 hours, and it's worked well. If you want to know any details about that, just let me know in the comments. What else? So, KTM. Previous video I made, I quoted 150 million in debt. That's not true. It is 3 billion. And currently over the 90-day self-administration, that means the owning business is put them into an administration situation. Yeah, you don't self-administer yourself. That's it. Go and pull out. There we go. So they've gone into self-administration. 3 billion. The management team, the C-suite, of which there is only 2 now, have to convince the sponsors, the stakeholders associated to KTM, that for the next 2 years they can get rid of 30% of their 3 billion debt. So in effect, over the next 2 years, they've got to clear 1 billion's worth, just under 1 billion's worth of the debt. Now, I do suspect that's going to be achievable, in open honesty. I do suspect it, yeah. So, fingers crossed, hopefully KTM won't go under or won't be sold off to another organisation. Yeah, fingers crossed, to be fair. I believe MV Augusta, as part of, because MV Augusta, I think it's MV Augusta that KTM own, that's been sold off. So there's going to be a bit of money there to support the 1 billion over 2 years. Anyway, let's go back to the stories. If you've got an attention span of 60 seconds, 2 stories. One when I was in Russia and their driving techniques and all that good stuff, and a quick chat about Australia and how I don't agree with the current process, coming from an IT business perspective, of what Australia are doing regarding fines to social media. But I'd love to know your thoughts. 60 seconds. If you've had enough, feel free to move on. Okay guys, let's get started. Let's talk about Russia first. That'll be more interesting, I guess. I spent some time in Russia. I spent a few visits over to Moscow. I spent some time in St. Petersburg, and I spent some time in a little village east of Moscow called Vladimir. Look it up on Google Maps. And we're talking about the time when I was driving from Moscow to Vladimir. And an interesting thing that happened. So, quickly, I had to, as part of some business investigation test or whatever, they wanted me to drive from a place just northwest of Moscow centre called Stragana. If there's anybody Russian on the channel, they will know where I mean. Stragana, and that pronounced as a word is Strogino. Stragana, Strogino. It's a suburb northwest of the centre of Moscow, and I drove from Stragana over to Vladimir. If you didn't know, the name of the towns do change depending on who's the boss, who's in charge of the country. And Vladimir was one of those towns that changed from whatever name it was in the past to Vladimir, as in Vladimir Putin. It's amazing how towns change their names in Moscow depending on who's in power. Yeah? So it's like Manchester suddenly be called Boris, or Manchester being called Stalin. I mean Starmer, not Stalin. There we go. Yeah, can you imagine that? You're suddenly living in Manchester and it gets changed to the name of Starmer. I live in Starmer. Wow. Anyway, I ended up having to drive in the midst of winter. I think it was January. Midst of winter, minus 25 degrees Celsius, from Stragana over to Vladimir. So I got a car, and it had got there's ice all over, there's snow all over, and started driving. It had got nailed tyres, as they call it, nailed tyres, where they've got studs on the tyres. If you've never driven a car in the ice if you've never driven a car in the ice with studs, it's a great experience. It's amazing how much traction the studs bring. Anyway, to discourage people, anyway, I was halfway over to Vladimir on one of the motorways, a 2-lane motorway, and the traffic started slowing down and going down into one lane, and really slowing down to sort of, 5 or 10 mile an hour. And there'd been an accident, and the car was on the hard shoulder, and there was no need to stop all the traffic and put it into one lane. It could have easily gone onto 2 lanes. It was informed that what they do is, and they did this in this occasion, as part of the accident, they get the bodies out of the car, those that have died, and lay them on the road and slow you down that much that you can see the dead bodies. And there you go. You're now driving past dead bodies that were killed in the car accident. Unbelievable. Even the kids in the school buses were driving past. But it's certainly a way of discouraging people from driving crazy. I don't think it's that particularly effective. However, I might be wrong. If you're coming in from Russia, tell me your story. Do you still do that over in Russia? What do you think to that? So you've learnt a couple of things there. Oh, hang on.
Okay, everyone. So the camera nearly fell off the helmet, so I've got to do some more work on that. But I'm now doing a voiceover on the next subject, which is Australia's new laws in banning 16-year-old or under 16-year-olds using social media. And I find it quite an interesting thing. And I just want to put a perspective on this. And the point here is, why are parents no longer taking control of things that their kids have access to? So, when I was a kid, I couldn't get into my brother's car or whatever and start driving it. I could do, but I didn't, because I knew I would get a clip around the head off my parents or off my brother and things like that. So I want to create an analogy here. A technology company provides a solution for people to use. How they use it is up to the people that are within that community. And the secondary effect of how they use it and the psychological issues that it brings into the young people and those over 16, to be fair, is not necessarily down to the technology supplier, but how it's managed. Let's focus on the 16-year-old and younger. How it's managed in your own culture. So, and then the governments of these countries, Australia in this case, are going to fine the technology provider for allowing under 16-year-olds onto their systems. The analogy I'm going to give is, if I lay a motorway for car drivers to use, if those car drivers start breaking the law or doing dangerous things, am I, as the organisation that laid the road, the motorway, from one town to another town, going to get fined for people that are abusing the facility that I created? Why? I'm just thinking, why would you fine me as the road layer to provide a product that people can use, and if they abuse it, it's my fault and I have to pay a fine? Right, let's go back. There's one analogy. Yeah, let's go back to the 16-year-olds and younger. We're very much, over the last 30 years, we've very much turned into a blame culture where it's everybody else's fault. And what we should be doing is providing, the parent should be saying, no, you can't have an iPhone at 15. Bearing in mind, it's 2024, and 10 years ago, the kids that went to school didn't go to school with a phone. They didn't. It's a new thing, this. It really is a new thing. Yeah? So, why aren't parents taking control of what tools their kids have access to? That's the first issue. We shouldn't be fining the organisation that laid the motorway because drivers are driving recklessly or driving too fast. Yes? What we need to do is take control of the people that are driving the cars and bringing them down to what they should be doing on the road. And this is exactly the case with parents. Parents should be controlling their kids in such a way and stop blaming other things for doing whatever. What do you think? Am I thinking wrong? At the very worst, when someone decides to give their child, because they are children, technology to the internet and social media and the systems that social media provide, would it not be a smarter thing that upon starting up the phone, the parent puts their details in and says, this is a phone for a child, and by default, it stops access to these social media systems that are by default made available to them. So I start up the phone, brand new iPhone 16 or whatever it is, or a Samsung or whatever, and I registered the phone with my account, and they say, is this your phone? Yes, it is. Then you get everything. Is it for a child under the age of 16? Yes, it is. What are their details? Put their details in, and then by default, you don't have access to any of the social media stuff. So that child is then handed their new iPhone or their Samsung, Android, whatever, and they don't have access to anything else. So it goes through a gateway. So the phone goes through a gateway and checks if you should have access to these systems or not. Now, as new systems come online, Instagram and the next thing that's going to come online beyond TikTok, then the gateway that controls this controls the access to the servers that new system provides. There will be errors, but those errors will be caught up within a number of days. Yeah? But, really, parents should take control of this. Not the technology supplier. Not the road layer. And then you have to look at the numbers of people that are having negative effects from social media. Not negative effects of being on a mobile phone. That's a different question. Let's focus on social media. And I believe that they are quite low. Relatively low. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this. So the first question is it fair that the social media supplier of the software be fined? Or should parents take control of the systems and technology that their children have access to? Yeah? In days gone by, my parents would say, no, you're not having whatever it is, because of the negative effects of whatever it is. No, you're not having that. No, you can't smoke at the age of 14. I'm not buying you a packet of cigarettes because whatever. Yeah, I'm just thinking, why do we blame everybody else today? Sometimes, is it not right that we have to take responsibility for our choices as parents against your children? I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that. I'm happy to be shot down on this one. And I'm not defending the likes of Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I'm just trying to look at this in a different way. How do you track a 14-year-old that's saying that they're 18 on a system? Why don't you just create a system that goes through a gateway that the parent logs in the phone and says, this is for a child. This is a phone for a child, and then you pass the phone to the child and they don't have access to any of the social media. And access to inappropriate content, should we call it? Let's call it inappropriate content. Yeah? Don't know, what are your thoughts? Anyway, I'm sorry about this voiceover. I'll have to fix the mount onto the helmet. And I think I have a fix, but I shall have to play around with that one. Tell me what your thoughts are. As always, ride safely, be kind to everyone, and eat healthily. I shall see you very soon. Bye bye.